The DVSA has just dropped some major changes to driving licenses and test bookings across England, Scotland, and Wales. And if you are a learner driver, a parent, a driving instructor, or someone thinking about getting behind the wheel, this affects you directly. These are not rumors. These are not leaks. The DVSA has officially announced new rules that are already starting to come into effect, and they mark the first stage of a much wider overhaul of the entire driving test process. So let us break it all down in plain language, step by step, so you know exactly what is changing, when it is changing, and what you need to do about it. For years, learner drivers have been facing unacceptably long waiting times. These delays have had a real and painful impact on people's independence, their employment opportunities, and their day-to-day lives. Young people ready to take their test have been stuck in a queue stretching months and months, not because there are not enough candidates, but because the system was being abused. Bots, third-party agencies, and resellers were hoarding test slots and selling them on at inflated prices. The national waiting backlog grew to an estimated 800,000 outstanding tests, and the old system, which placed almost no cap on how many times a booking could be changed, became a playground for these operators. The DVSA has finally had enough, and they are taking action. The very first change, and one that is already in effect as of the 31st of March 2026, is the new 2-change limit on driving test bookings. Previously, you could change your test date up to 6 times. From the end of March, you can only make 2 changes per booking. After that, you would need to cancel and rebook entirely. This sounds simple on the surface, but the implications are enormous for thousands of learners who got used to the old, flexible system. It is important to understand exactly what counts as a change under these new rules. If you change more than one thing at the same time, for example the date and the test center together, this still counts as just one change. However, once you have used both of your changes, you will have to cancel your test and book a brand new one. And if you cancel within 10 working days of your test, you could lose your fee entirely, so it is absolutely critical that you think carefully before making any amendments to your booking. There are some things that do not count towards your change limit. Updating your address or contact details on your booking does not count. Adding or removing your driving instructor's reference number does not count. And if the DVSA itself needs to make a change to your test, for example due to bad weather, that also does not count against you. In fact, if the DVSA changes your test for any reason, you will be reset to having 2 changes available again. That is a small but important relief built into the new system. Now, here is something else that a lot of people are not aware of. If you had already used all of your 6 changes under the old rules before the 31st of March, you are still entitled to make 2 more changes from that date onwards. So the DVSA is not penalizing people retroactively. If you were already deep into the old system, you still get a fair chance under the new one. But the 2-change rule is just the beginning. The next major wave of changes is arriving on the 12th of May 2026, and this one is enormous. From that date, only learner drivers themselves will be allowed to book or manage a car driving test. Unofficial test booking services, some driving instructors, and websites offering cancellation finder services will no longer be able to act on behalf of learners. This is a fundamental shift in how the entire booking system works. Think about what this means in practice. For years, many learners have relied on their instructors to handle all the administration. Instructors would book the test, manage the dates, shift things around if needed. The new rules will prevent third-party companies and online bots from buying and reselling test slots, which will reduce the number of tests being sold at extortionate prices. It protects learners not just from the system being gamed, but also from their own personal data being handed around without their direct knowledge or control. Under the new measures, learner drivers who need extra support will still be able to book their tests by calling the DVSA Customer Service Center directly. So if you are someone who struggles with online systems, there is still a route for you. You are not being left behind. But the days of your instructor clicking a few buttons and handling everything on your behalf through unofficial channels are coming to an end. What about driving instructors who have already booked tests for their pupils before May 12th? Any driving tests that instructors have already booked for their pupils are still valid and will go ahead as planned. Instructors will need to make sure their pupils have their driving test reference number so they can manage their tests themselves going forward. So if you are a learner driver whose instructor handled your booking, now is the time to get that reference number from them and take control of your own booking. Driving instructors will still be able to use the online service to manage when they are available to take their pupils for driving tests. They will be able to set morning and afternoon hours they are available for each day of the week, as well as one-off times when they are unavailable. To ensure overlapping times are kept to a minimum, instructors can also set how long they need between one test ending and the next one starting. So instructors are not completely cut out of the process. They still have a role in guiding learners and managing their own availability, but the control of the actual test booking now sits firmly with the learner. Then comes the third major change, landing on the 9th of June, 2026. From that date, learners will only be able to move their booked test to one of the 3 nearest driving test centers. The location restriction has been designed to prevent people from booking tests in far-off centers where drivers have no intention of actually taking them. This was a known loophole. People would book in quiet, rural test centers with shorter waiting lists, not because they lived anywhere near them, but because slots were available. They would then try to swap or move the booking closer to home. That is now over. Early trials of these measures reported a 30% reduction in no-shows, freeing up thousands of slots for urgent applicants, particularly those whose employment depends on holding a full license. The DVSA projects that national waiting times will fall from around 20 weeks to under 10 weeks by summer 2026 if compliance holds. That would be a massive improvement for hundreds of thousands of learners who are currently stuck in limbo. And the DVSA is not stopping there. The theory test is also being updated. The DVSA has revised the first aid content in the driving theory test to equip more learner drivers with vital life-saving skills. The theory test will now include enhanced questions around cardiopulmonary resuscitation and automated external defibrillators. This is purely knowledge-based, so no physical CPR demonstration is required, but learners will need to have a solid understanding of how to respond in a cardiac emergency. The DVSA has already updated its official learning material to include this new content, so learner drivers will have time to familiarize themselves before the changes take full effect. There are also broader changes on the horizon for older drivers. Some of the anticipated changes include mandatory eye tests for over 70-year-olds. Currently, drivers over 70 must renew their license every 3 years, and the system relies on individuals reporting their own medical conditions. If the proposed changes go ahead, an eye test could become a mandatory part of the renewal process. This is not law yet, but the discussion is well underway, and it is something that millions of older drivers across the country need to keep a close eye on. Drivers who held a license before 1997 and automatically retained Category C1 and D1 entitlements for minibuses will also notice a significant change from the 22nd of March, 2026. Those previously unrestricted grandfather rights, which allowed pre-1997 license holders to drive vehicles between 3.5 and 7.5 tons without additional qualifications, have been replaced by a mandatory fitness to retain clause. Under the new rules, drivers wishing to keep these entitlements must now undergo regular medical assessments, including cognitive evaluations, physical fitness checks, and reaction time tests. If you are someone who has been driving a minibus under those old automatic entitlements, this is a significant change that requires your immediate attention. Looking at the bigger picture, this is the most comprehensive shake-up of the UK driving test and licensing system in many years. The DVSA consultation received over 100,000 responses, with 72% coming from learner drivers, 7.7% from parents or guardians, and 9.9% from approved driving instructors or trainee instructors. The message from the public was clear: the system was broken, learners were being exploited, and something had to change. The DVSA listened, and now the changes are here. The DVSA's new chief executive made it clear that the agency's priority is to stop learners being exploited and to put them back in control of booking their own driving test. That is the core principle behind every single one of these changes. It is about giving power back to the learner, cutting out the middlemen who were profiting from the system, and making sure that the people who are genuinely ready to take their test can actually get a slot without waiting nearly half a year. So to summarize everything clearly, from the 31st of March, 2026, you can only change your driving test booking twice. From the 12th of May, 2026, only you as the learner can book or manage your own test, and that is being enforced by law. From the 9th of June, 2026, you can only move your test to one of your 3 nearest test centers. The theory test now includes updated first aid content. Pre-1997 license holders with automatic minibus entitlements face new medical assessment requirements. And further changes around older driver eyesight testing are coming down the line. Whether you are a learner driver trying to figure out your next steps, a parent trying to help your teenager navigate the system, or a driving instructor adapting your business to the new reality, these changes touch everyone involved in the world of driving in the UK. Stay informed, read the official government guidance, and make sure your bookings are in order before the deadlines hit. If this video helped you understand what is happening and what you need to do, please subscribe to my channel right now. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update like this. There is a lot more coming on driving laws, license changes, and road rules, and you do not want to be the last to know. Subscribe to my channel and stay ahead of every change on the road.